by Karen's story last week, and I'm going to start off with talking with you about my experiences in Africa. It's such a cliche to say life-changing, but it truly was so impactful. So Senegal is a country that is 95% Muslim, 3 to 4% Christian. There's a pocket of Christianity there. When I was attending Grace Community Church in Marion, we went to Senegal. I was fortunate enough to go on to 2 medical missions trips. And Grace has had this partnership for 10 years. They've been supporting this church in this village in Senegal. That's really the way missions should be done, building, and not just building, but sustaining relationships. So we camped. I'd not done that in many years. We camped in the bush, in the sub-Saharan desert, and both times after they were clearing the tents away, packing things up, they found scorpions. 2 dead and 1 alive, and they're sand-colored. I don't have medical knowledge or expertise. I transcribed doctor's notes from French into a ledger, and that's a team member, Butch, who did the same thing with me. The children love to see the white people. We're 2 bobs. And the bus will be rolling through the desert, and they come from everywhere, and they wave and wave, because sometimes the 2 bobs throw candy out the window. And I want to hone in on this. The lady in the orange and blue, that's Debo Phi. She's my namesake. So in this culture, and I'm not sure if they do this elsewhere in Africa, they have a naming ceremony. So the people on the missions team receive a namesake selected by the pastor. And as I got off the bus that night, Debo Phi was there, and she picked me out. She wanted me. I don't know why, but she wanted me to be her namesake. And so the way this comes about is there's a big naming ceremony, and we're gathered right where we're sitting there in that picture. A big circle, there's 1 light bulb hanging on a string, a wire, and that's all the light in this pitch darkness. And they call the people's names. And I watched this happen a couple of times, and I knew what I was going to have to do. And my son, Andrew, had already told me, Mom, you're going to be out of your mind with culture shock. Just go with it. I mean, and he was so right. So anyway, when it came my turn, I decided whatever Debo Phi did, I was going to do. I was just going to mirror her. So I forgot the most important part. The drums are beating faster and faster, which means you have to dance and keep up with that beat. So here I am, way over the hill. I'm actually not going to demonstrate all of it, but you bend over, stick your bottom out, put your feet close together, and move them as fast as you possibly can. Hold your skirt up slightly, don't show too much ankle. Your other hand is just free. And you're doing that as fast as you can, and as long as the person in front of you is doing that. And then the children are rolling around in the sand laughing. Everybody's laughing because the 2 bobs cannot dance. We cannot possibly keep up with the Africans. Then what happens? The namesakes spend time together. You can talk through an interpreter. You can hold hands. We did a lot of just holding hands, laughing. And when we're together, Debo Phi goes by Michele, and I go by Debo Phi. Walking around, everybody's like, hey, Debo Phi, Debo Phi. It's just what they do, and it's funny. But last time we were together, last May a year ago, through an interpreter, I forgot, and I asked about her family. We're not supposed to ask about their families because there's so much death. Debo Phi looked down, and she got really quiet, and I learned that she had buried 2 sons. My heart went out to her. I said, I'm sorry. Put my arm around her. That's all I could do. But now, most of you know that on June 29th, I lost my only son, my only child, by his own hand. Now I long to go back to Africa and put my arms around Djibouti and cry, because we share that grief. Grief is universal. It doesn't matter that I can't speak the tribal languages of Wolof or Serer or even French. We speak the language of Christ, hope, of heaven, and I long to weep with my namesake. If God brings you to mine, brings me to your mind to pray for me, I long to go back to Africa. My current story, if you were in attendance at Andrew's service or you watched it online, you know the significance of this plaque. I believe David wanted me to tell that story again and have the plaque here again. If you're curious to know the significance of that, you can find it online on the Facebook page. It's a plaque that Andrew gave me that I see every day that gives me a lot of strength. I cannot tell you how many people, including some of my new friends yesterday at the market, said, "Michele, you're so strong." And my response is always the same. What choice do I have? Am I going to turn my back on the God in whom I put my trust for decades because he allowed a tragedy in my life? No, that would negate everything I've ever said about God. So you don't know how strong you are until strength is your only option. And I would add strength in the Lord. I wasn't at this place early on. I sat in the parlor with Pastor David and I said, "I'm a stage 3 cancer survivor. This is grafted to my tongue. I lost 1/3 of my tongue. Isn't that enough? I'm a widow. I was on the road to divorce for 2 years when my husband unexpectedly died. We were on good terms. Isn't that enough? And now my only son has taken his life." And Pastor David said, "Those are questions only God can answer." Later, I thought, well, God doesn't give us more than we can handle. I've heard that all of my adult life. And I started to draw some strength from that. Oh, so God believes in me. He thinks I'm really strong. So where in the Bible is that? I went looking. Believers, it is not in the Bible. God will absolutely give you more than you can handle. I'm living proof of it. Because, number one, we are here to glorify him. We forget that. The world doesn't know it or forgets it. We are here to bring others to him. And we are here to cling to him. I thought I was clinging to Jesus when I battled cancer or when Norm died. I am clinging to Jesus. I can't get through each day. This is a scripture verse that my grief counselor at Four Seasons shared with me, and also Pastor David. And by the way, I don't know if you realize how much he does behind the scenes. He met me at Old Fort McDonald's recently for over an hour just to catch up. And he shared this verse. "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland." I'm hoping that God is making a way in the desert of the sub-Sahara desert for me to go back to Africa. But he's doing a new thing, which is kind of a scary prospect at any age, but especially my age. Part of the new thing is, I'm going to actually read this slide next. Your ministry is found where you've been broken. Well, I haven't just been broken. I've been shattered to pieces. And your testimony is found where you've been restored. I'm not restored yet. It's a process. I hope you will see 3 months, 6 months, a year, more restoration. But it's only been a little over 2 months that Andrew died. But your ministry is right where you are. It's being open to the people that God puts in your path. I met yesterday with a former student where I was a professor at North Greenville. And the year I had her, she attempted suicide twice. She reached out to me on Facebook. I called her, and we met yesterday for lunch. I told her my story. For over 2 hours we talked, and last night she sent me this text. I just want to say thank you for meeting with me. Hearing your perspective on things really made an impact on me. I can't even begin to imagine what you're going through. Now I see firsthand the impact of suicide on those around them. I guess I've only seen it from one perspective. I want you to know that I'm going to fight for my life. I'm going to work hard to figure out my triggers and learn new and better ways to cope with them. I want to reach other people who are struggling. That's someone who attempted suicide twice. This is my ministry. Whoever God puts in my path, and your path is your ministry. Quickly, I want to tell you, early on, I wryly said, I want to take on the whole U.S. Army. I want to tell them that their suicide prevention measures are not working. My son was a veteran of the Army. He was not mentally ill, though. Several things converged, and he lost hope. I wish I had time to tell you how this came to be, but these folks on the parkway in this picture with me, in my proud Army mom shirt, are former drill sergeants and first sergeants from where he was last based in Texas, San Angelo, his cadre. And I had been out walking my dogs and just praying out to the Lord, saying, I'm empty. I need you, God, to speak to me. Shortly after that, First Sergeant Aldana messages me on Facebook and says, we're coming to see you. I'm like, you're going to come to North Carolina from Texas? He said, yes. So they spent 2 whole days with me, sharing stories about Andrew, laughing, crying. And we even had his... put the ashes in the columbarium at the Veteran Cemetery. I didn't know why I'd been holding on to them, but they were there for that service, and I spoke. And I also gave them a copy of this book early on. And it still keeps me going, is reading about heaven. God put books in my path about heaven, and this one is so good. I started it last year, but I put it down. And I said, well, it just doesn't have meaning for me right now. Maybe if I had a friend or a loved one who was dying. Little did I know. So I pulled it out. I gave them a copy of this. And I spoke at the Andrew's service at the VA. And I said, if people are in heaven because of all of this pain, the most incomprehensible pain, I did not know life could be so painful. But it will make it all worth it. If people are in heaven because of Andrew's death and because I'm not afraid to speak out. Lastly, I want to say, to support someone in grief, just be yourself. So many people have just, I don't want to make her cry. You don't want to make me cry? I cry every day. But there's no greater gift that you can give someone in grief than to ask them about their loved one and really listen. My sister in Christ out there is smiling because she knows that's true. This is not in passing. This is when you have time to sit with them in their home. My grief counselor told me, we're all just walking each other home. That's what church is, but it has to go out there. We have to walk each other toward heaven. I messaged Pastor David a few weeks ago and said I want to speak because this is the beginning of National Suicide Prevention Week. I thought my story would focus on suicide. But I want to share this with you, and there is a hotline number, 988. If you know of someone or you are struggling, you need to know about this. If you know of someone, you need to reach out to them. You need to help them walk home. What a difference it would have made in my son's life. Anyway, I'm always open to talking with people who are struggling. And I just pray that this talk, as my story, will have an impact. Thank you for listening.